Coming up in this episode.
Funny enough, my business partner lives in London. I am in Cardiff, and he said, "You know what? Whenever I'm renting an apartment, if my landlord would ask me to dance naked in front of their building at 11 p.m. in the night, I would do that. Because if I really, really want that apartment, that's it.
You
Case
have to,
closed.
otherwise it's going to go to someone else. Yeah,
Exactly.
There's not really any mystical skill to sales. Yes, you can go and learn sales frameworks, and there's a ton of literature on the psychology of sales and all this sort of stuff. I've read all of those books and I know all about them, but ultimately I just throw them out the window, because what is important is it's about excellent communication skills. That's all it comes down to, the art of communication.
A lot of founders are finding themselves struggling to actually put up that first step. I need 500K in funding to actually build an app. So why do you need an app? Let's try to get 3 steps before that app that you want to build. To put up a website is a £50, £100 type of effort. Put it there, put something, validate your solution first.
The Founders Unplugged podcast, hosted by Greg McCallum. Raw, unedited conversations with entrepreneurs and startup founders.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Sorry, let me just close the door.
The virtual door or not?
That was a real door I just closed. I've never used one of these filters before in these conversations, but I was just a bit early and I was just playing around with them. I was like, you know what? I feel like a mad scientist today. I'm going to use one of these.
It looks very nice.
Yeah.
Well done for it.
My bot has joined. We don't want the bot to join. Let's go away.
And nowadays, I start seeing lots of bots like this, which frankly I found them quite useful in terms of transcribing and everything. The only thing in sometimes they auto join, and especially in business development type of calls where you get in a call, you just met the person or you agree to have a call, and then suddenly the bot is there and say, okay, I'm being recorded. But
exactly.
I knew that this conversation will be recorded, so feel free to leave it there. I don't care.
Exactly. I use them all the time. I use that particular one, Assembly. I'm always recommending Assembly. It's by far the best, because I've tried all of them, like literally all of them, and they just didn't quite do what I wanted them to do. But this one's really good because it not only transcribes it and records it and everything, but it also creates like a summary with bullet points, and then it also links to my task app. So it will listen for tasks, and then it will add them to my task app. So if I've said like, oh, I need you to email that to me by tomorrow, and then I'll get that to you by Wednesday, it will assign the task to them and assign the task to me. It's brilliant.
Wow.
The only problem is it does mean my task app is very, very full.
You know how it is. You can always dismiss a task.
Well, that's it. And that's what I spend the majority of my time doing, is ignoring my tasks. Yeah, exactly. But how are things with you?
All good, all good. Back from quite an extended period of working from anywhere. And yeah, right now back in business, and the kids are back in school. You know, the business as usual. Back. It feels like back in the rain. Although last week when we came back, it was quite sunny, and we've seen the crazy temperatures over the weekend. So
nuts, isn't it? Yeah, but it's definitely starting to cool down now. You were abroad. I can't remember where you were when we first spoke. You were abroad. So was it for a wedding or something?
No, fundamentally I spent the summer in Italy. Part in Tuscany and part in Ancona. We've tried it last year and we totally loved it. Fundamentally over the kids' vacation, which is 6 weeks, we rent an Airbnb apartment where we get quite good deals for an extended period of time. And it's not like in a hotel. I wouldn't be able to live for like 6 weeks in a hotel. The beauty also, we can get some guests, and this is very interesting to get together with friends and actually spend 3, 4, 5 days together, especially in a nice country. So what's not to love about?
Yeah, it's a great idea, and other people can come and visit, and it's brilliant. It's a brilliant idea, and that's the wonderful thing about like this working from home change, for a lot of people. The only thing that makes me a bit sad is thinking about the fact that like we're so privileged to be able to do that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's everyone is always talking about this discussion about, working from home, everyone should work from home. It's like, yeah, but the vast majority of the public of people do not have that option. They work in factories, they work on buses and in trains and in shops. It's like, we're privileged, guys. Don't forget it. You know what I mean?
Indeed.
Yeah.
That's very
People
well
seem to forget
spoken.
that.
And it's probably the first time when I actually realized that this society is repaying, if you want, a little bit not fair, the individuals and different working groups. Is March 2020, when the whole COVID struck, and then you realize that, okay, if I don't have somebody to actually deliver the food on my door, then that's it. In 3, 5, 2 weeks, whatever, I will be dead. And then you realize that, yes, we are, and usually and unfortunately those working groups are paid probably the lowest in the society, and you get truck drivers, you get everybody in that aspect, not to mention nurses, not to mention NHS, where frankly, can you imagine being an NHS staff during that time? I was indoor, and I'm not overly scared, and I haven't been overly worried about the whole COVID. But it was sort of, okay, I'm doing whatever the government is saying to do, and I'm doing my own things, and okay, I will get past to it. But then if I need to actually be in a hospital and dealing with people day in, day out, oh my goodness, I have no idea how they actually were able to put up with this. So
it was remarkable. And people, who were like ex NHS workers being called up and stuff. I know a few people who, quit the NHS years ago to open private practice and so on. And of course, their businesses closed down. They weren't able to function. And then they got the call. We need you to come back in. And it's like, oh, shit. Okay. There you go. Yeah, it was an interesting time. But listen, it's great to have you on. Thank you so much. As you've already seen, we already started recording. We just go straight into it. and straight away start talking. That's how I do it. But I do have one little bit of structure in this, which is, it would be great if, for those listening or watching, you could introduce yourself and maybe introduce a bit about your business, and then we can carry on talking. But it's just a bit of a formality. Would you mind?
Perfect. Yeah, so again, I'm Adrian Defta. I'm originally from Romania, so that's the funny accent. I spent probably 10 years in my professional life in software development, project management, that type of thing. So in a company, I always was earning my bread with my PC. Very, very simple. And then I can see that you are looking to my to my profile. Indeed, so the first 10 years in Romania, then 2013 decided to take a career break, came here in the UK to study for an MBA. And I used that MBA to transition into the financial sector here in the UK. I'm based in Cardiff, married, 2 kids, two beautiful daughters, 5 and 7, going to school as I mentioned. And 2 years ago, roughly 2 years ago, I decided to start my own company called ProveIT. Fundamentally, that was the first time when I realized that actually, even people that are, if you want, in their mid-careers, decent earners, have some decent life, if you want, can struggle with basic things. To put things more in perspective, again, 2013 decided to come here, started the MBA program, came with like 3-4 days before just to try to find an accommodation. And I've stayed in a hotel and says, okay, let me get a hotel for a week or something, and then during this time to actually get something to rent. And then it hit me because nobody wanted to rent me anything. Why? Very simple, because they didn't know me financially. They had no idea who am I. Also, back in Romania, I own my own apartment. I already paid my mortgage there. So if they were bothering to actually look at that, I say, no, this guy actually at least paid its rent. pay its mortgage and everything. Had lots of financial products and everything. But because here in the UK it didn't have any credit score at all, then of course nobody knew me, and everybody says, sorry, okay, we don't know you, we cannot rent you because you fail your tenant referencing checks. And then that struck me because I was kind of, okay, my program was about to start. It was 1 year program, so I was back in school for 1 year full-time education. I needed an accommodation. There is no way in hell for me to actually spend 1 year in a hotel. That costs, then there is no way to spend that time in a hotel. And I said, okay, what the heck do I do? And of course, I was quite lucky because the ways that I've solved it is the ways that most of people are solving it. I rented somebody under somebody else's umbrella. So one of my colleagues in the MBA, he already been here for whatever number of years before. He knew and he had a credit score. And I said, okay, let's both of us find a 2-bedroom apartment, and then probably that's perfect for us. And then, yeah, luckily we just met. So imagine like this: my program was about to start. I never met this guy before. We met in a coffee shop. We shook hands, and then says, "Okay, let's live together for the next 1 year." And bear in mind that I never lived with anybody else. Of course, a part of my wife. And my parents back then. But that was, I never had a flatmate or a roommate or anything like this. So for me was a bit of and the guy, a brilliant guy, and we are still friends to this day. So happy ending. But that happy ending, frankly, could have gone completely wrong.
Yeah, of course. You got lucky. Yeah,
I got very lucky because then can you imagine again meeting somebody in the coffee shop is okay, let's spend 1 year together in the same apartment. And the life of an MBA student is not exactly easy in terms of you need to put a lot of effort. It's stressful. You are away of your family, friends, anything, you name it. It's kind of military style where pretty much you cut off all the communication and it's like, no, head down and let's start it. So yeah, this is the first things that I've encountered here, and says, okay, just because I decided to change countries right now, anyway, that comes with a lot of problems. Right now, I have many other problems that I never thought about. Again, mentioning about renting an apartment, but then even the most basic stuff. I mean, I remember back then I had an iPhone, I don't know, 3, 4, whatever, this kind of very old iPhone. And then it kind of worked, but not so great. I said, okay, let me try to change it. Let me get a mobile phone contract. Again, go there, go in the shop. The guy says, sorry, you fail your credit score checks. Sorry, we don't know you. We don't have any credit score here. We can give you this very nice SIM card, prepaid SIM card, where you put some money on it and then you spend it. And again, all my life I had a mobile phone contract, and then nowadays I need to have a prepaid card, which that damn thing actually was constantly running out of internet or whatever. And I was in the middle of something trying to upload my papers, my whatever, and then it says, sorry, run out of battery, run out of data. You need to top up, and I needed to call in Vodafone IVR and then do whatever there. So yeah, this is the kind of problems that I've encountered then. And also you get a high car insurance premium and many other things that fundamentally you cannot do pretty much anything about it. And this is why I said, okay, let's do something, because 10 years ago, frankly, you couldn't do a lot of things that actually right now you can do. Right now, especially in Europe, including UK, you can get this kind of data portability not only inside the country but between countries. So, and it's very easy for the user. It's just some clicks there, so it's not a very big process there. And for the companies also, they get whatever data that they need there, and of course with the user permission, to understand, okay, this is Adrian, and yes, on average, maybe people without credit score, they are a bad risk for whatever service you want to provide them. But still, let's look into their profiles, because okay, look like this. Adrian is 35 years old, married, owns some properties, use financial products, anything. He must be a better risk than the average. I don't know. Of course, he's not like for like with the UK. He's transitioning right now in the UK. You cannot just say, okay, this score in Romania will equivalent to that score in the UK. But still, needs to be a little bit of differentiation there. And there are, I mean, um, for better or worse, we voted exit, whatever, Brexit. But still, there are 1.2 million people coming to the UK. I mean, last year, there were 1.2 million coming to the UK. Probably that was not the intended consequence of the Brexit, but it is the reality. And that there are lots of papers saying that will not be sort of okay dying off or anything. People coming to the UK, then the number of people coming to the UK are growing. Even worldwide, we are talking about 300 million people that are not living in their own country. So this is, I say, not okay. It's not just me. It's not just me and dealing with whatever problems. Let me try to solve this. This is why we started this again. It's a relatively small company. I mean, it is a small company. We are two co-founders and two techies in the team, developing a platform there and getting more and more customers to it, and more companies to say, okay, yeah, I can do a differentiation there.
It's a brilliant idea, and it's not the first time I've spoken to people who've had these issues. It's over the years, growing up, I've told this story a couple of times. Growing up in Oxford, we always had foreign students living with us, so people from different countries living with us, and they would talk about these problems all the time. But my family would help them with those things because obviously we were used to it, but it was still very complicated, and it would depend which country you were from too, and how complicated that would get. So yeah, it's a huge problem. Is this something that you're a solution that you're implementing worldwide, so people worldwide can take advantage of this sort of international credit score to a degree, or is it just focusing on specific countries first?
So the grand vision, of course, will be to eventually be worldwide.
Right.
Right now, we focus purely on Europeans coming to the UK. Why? Relatively simple, because at European level, there is a directive called open banking, which allows this data portability and allows all the infrastructure and everything. Because otherwise, I mean, right now we are connected with 3,000 plus banks. For us to actually be able to put a credit score on you in Romania, in France, in wherever in Europe, we need access to your data. And that access to your data, it is of course in the controlled manner, it's in a proper way. And this is why Europeans actually got together and said, guys, let's create this mechanism. And in 2016 they wanted to, I mean, they mandated the banks to create the mechanism, and then right now most of the banks are on board with this. So this is why for now it is only Europe. However, what Europeans did is not only in Europe. So it is a huge international trend called open data. A similar exercise was started in US 2013 by the industry. So not by the regulator, as in Europe, by the industry. They wanted to say, you know what, let's open up the books, let's open up the data. Then you get Australia, you get India in it. So there are quite a lot of countries, internationals into this. Of course, various countries has various ways of accessing this data, but the principle is exactly the same. But right now, again, as a small startup, we want to focus purely on Europeans coming to the UK.
And as you said, has this problem become more difficult since Brexit? Is there less exchange of information, or was it always a problem, regardless of Brexit, do you think?
I don't think that Brexit influenced this.
Okay.
In a sense, and in a very weird way, most of European countries, whenever they are providing you a paper, whatever is that paper, and it's an official paper, most of European countries provide you in the whatever language, national language, but also in English. Weirdly enough, as we all know, there is no English-speaking country in European Union right now.
Yeah, not
uh,
officially. Yeah,
but the official language is English. So from that perspective, and that I don't think that will change. I don't see overnight says, okay, the official language is, I don't know, French or German or whatever. There is no way to do that.
Yeah.
So this is why the access to data, luckily, UK, it's anyway they want to do the same things, and they've been kind of leading the whole Europe in terms of data access. And Europe, it's following quite close there. So no, I haven't seen any problems. And with GDPR and data portability, UK it's still into lots of treaties and everything. So from the data perspective and GDPR, as long as you are in Europe plus UK, you are okay. It's not a problem.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And what about customers or people using the platform? Like, you know, are you at that stage yet where people are starting to use it? And if so, sort of what does that look like? How many have you got, and where are they based?
So we started on two fronts, because first, if we want to be the experts of putting a credit score on any European, then we better start in Europe somewhere and have some services there.
Yeah.
That was our first thought. And this is why we launched in Romania a service for tenants reference.
Right.
And a little bit about Romania and why it's relevant for the whole Europe. Believe it or not, in Romania, you can just show up there with your government issued ID and its photo and everything. So it's an official document. And you go to your landlord, says, hey, I'm Adrian, this is my ID, and trust me that I will be paying your rent. And the landlord, for whatever reason, says, okay, I can trust you and your blue eyes. I don't know, because they have zero data on me. When I turn up there, the landlord actually has like zero data, no referencing checks, no reference from the previous landlord. There is no way of doing that. Of course, if they ask and if I'm okay and if I provide whatever contact from the ex-landlord, they might do, but good luck of deciding if that's my ex-landlord or is my friend or whatever, and so on. So this is why fundamentally the way that the renting market is working in Romania, it's based on trust.
Right.
Just you show up there.
Gentleman's agreement. Yeah. And a handshake. Yeah.
You can say like this. There are official contracts. There are some unofficial contracts also, but a lot of them are official contracts. So from the legal perspective, they are okay. But in terms of tenants referencing, there is nothing there. So we launched the service, a very simple service for tenants referencing. So fundamentally what we do, you come there and you allow us to put a score on you as a tenant. We communicate the score with you as a tenant and also as a landlord. And then we put a little bit more transparency into that relation, a little bit more trust. And we've tried to find the route to market there. This, I mean, initially we've agreed with the Zupla of Romania to promote this, and they say, okay, let us run some user research, some everything, and that it's still progressing. The only thing is that because the tenants or the lettings market in Romania is so small, it's only 4% of people actually are renting. 96% are living in their own houses, believe it or not.
Oh, really? Wow. That's extremely high.
It is extremely high. That talks about the mentality and also some historical reasons. That is the rental market. It's very small. So this is why the Zupla of Romania, they're focusing on the buying and selling rather than on the renting. And it takes a little bit more time that initially they plan. They still said, you know what, by the end of this year we should have a journey where we'll promote your product. But in the meantime, we wanted to do whatever what we can do. And we start discussing with property management companies, and those guys says, you know what, we want your product and we need your product like air. And thinking like this is the obvious thing, because the property management company, their long-term relation is with the landlord, is not with the tenant.
Yeah.
And if they screw it there, if they put a bad tenant into the doesn't matter why and how, of course the landlord will not be very happy, and probably the landlord will switch the property management agency. So this is why they say yes, let's go on board. And right now this is our primary route to markets, to the property management companies, and then again hopefully the Zoopla of Romania, so the number 2 website in terms of the real estate website in Romania. Hopefully they will promote it, and that is the scale. But even right now we have tens of tenants actually generating the score, and it's, you know how it is, especially for a young startup venturing in this kind of completely new territories. We are very pleased with the performance there. We are very pleased with the experience, and yes, it creates a little bit of a friction between the landlord and the tenant. But still, it's one of those things. If you really want that property, by all means, you need to create your score.
And what's that score based on?
Fundamentally, the score is based on 24 months of worth of your bank transactions. So imagine that we have access to your bank statements for 24 months.
Mm-hmm.
Based on this, we understand your income, the frequency of income, the level of income, and then we understand the outgoings. Again, the frequency of your monthly outgoings, and also the level of it. And then we share, and this is the beauty. I mean, when you give us the permission to look into your account, we have thousands of transactions there. But we share something very simple. We share something very high level, saying, you know what, you've been paying regularly your bills, you have a regular income, well done, you are a green tenant.
Right.
Or, you know what, your income it's now and then, and you kind of pay your bills, but sometimes you skip some of the bills. Then you are an orange if you're a tenant. Or, you know what, you have zero income and you don't pay your bills. Either you didn't link your main account. It might be the case that you linked whatever accounts that you might have there for whatever, or actually you are not a good tenant there, and that's a red flag for the landlord. Then of course it's up to the landlord if they want to sign the contract with you or not. We just provide the information, and
It's like a traffic light system essentially.
Yes, indeed.
It's nice and simple. Yeah.
But then based on this and this experience, we are close to work with companies here in the UK, providing services, providing loans for thin credit files or bad credit files.
Right.
So the main problems that we've seen in that niche, and there are quite a lot of companies, is imagine that you've been living in the UK. It doesn't matter, you just came in the UK or you've been here for all your life. For whatever reasons, you are in that segment where you actually live off your salary, and then it's kind of by the end of the month you don't have any more money there. Then sometimes let's assume that something like your fridge or your washing machine breaks, and you need to replace it. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people actually that cannot afford the £500 unscheduled and unplanned. And that segment is growing and growing with this the cost of living that we seen right now. And a lot of them, and I didn't know this before I was looking and getting closer with the companies there. A lot of those people, unfortunately, they don't have many options. Of course, the first option would be banks, but banks will never agree to get a loan to either a bad credit file, either somebody having a very thin credit file. Maybe they just came here. So fundamentally, their only option is getting to the loan sharks. And I understand that phenomenon is quite well spread it, and it's quite. And this is why there are companies, ethical lenders, that actually wants to solve this problem. And they are conscious, and we had quite frank discussions. Says, you know what, in my book, I am conscious that 15% to 20% of people will never pay me back.
Mm.
And that is the kind of, is not fraud, or it might be fraud or whatever. It's this kind of error rate, if you want, where I'm giving you £500 or £700, and I know that I will never see it back.
It's like acceptable breakages, almost like an accepted loss in the business. Yeah.
This is the loss that they are living with right now, and because they are, I mean, they are a non-profit organization, and those organizations are kind of, again, non-profit. Their only mission is to help people that they have only one option, going to the loan sharks, and right now, okay, we get there. Invariably, those people are very high risk on average. But then we want to help them to differentiate between somebody that maybe on purpose they want to get £500 and they disappear, because anyway their credit score is like 0 or whatever, close to 0. So they don't have anything to lose. Versus people that actually are in that situation, but they are, let's say, average risks. aka people that just came to the UK, they have some financial history somewhere in Europe, and now the lenders can actually understand their financial situation from Europe. Says, okay, I understand that in UK you don't have a lot of credit history, but here in, I don't know, Romania, let's say, or anywhere in Europe, actually it feels like you had a steady income, you had a steady outgoing, so you are, let's say, an average credit risk there. So they might be more inclined to actually open up their books to these people. And again, it's fundamentally companies and lenders, because this is where we found the sweet spot, where those kind of ethical lenders trying to help people that are actually on a brink to go to the loan sharks. Weirdly enough, and I'm still trying to crack that market, another huge pain point is about getting car insurance.
Right.
If you just came here in the UK, your car insurance premium is through the roof. And I've been working in insurance sector for 8 years. I know exactly the in and outs. I know how it works. And everybody agrees that, yes, we treat them on average, because we don't have data to actually differentiate between, let's say, the average Joe and somebody who's a better risk and somebody who's a lower risk. And this is where I am advocating, and I'm saying it's a little bit outrageous, because the data is there. It's not that we don't have the data. The data is there. The only thing is, of course, the company needs to do a little bit of effort of looking to that data. That data, it's in a format that they can look at. Even the no claim bonus. So you can get your no claim bonus pretty much from anywhere in Europe in an English written format.
Right.
That's it. And that is quite important to say, you know what, Adrian, for the last 10 years, never had an accident. Okay, of course, switching from Romania to UK doesn't mean that in UK you will not have an accident, but still it's better than somebody who actually had a 0 years no claim bonus. That kind of approach. But again, because usually the car insurance companies are very focused on mass market and actually providing a service for the, let's call it, the average Joe. They struggle when we get into those kind of niches to say, okay, right now, how many, I don't know, Europeans are here? Okay, there are some quite good millions, but then getting a different process for these people, actually, it's a pain. So we're still trying to crack that market. It's not of a given. So if anybody from car insurance is listening to this podcast, please reach out and let's have a conversation
and solve that problem. Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned about well, obviously quite a lot of things there that I'm curious about. But one thing in particular you mentioned a couple of times, which is that the data is available, but it's just and it's in English, so that across the board. But I suppose, does that mean that there is a challenge ahead of you for when you want to spread out to Europe in a more meaningful way? That between other European countries, that's going to be more difficult, or would because of would they be able to always rely on the fact that there is English for English, even in non-native English speaking countries, or would they need it to be translated into their native tongue to make it more efficient?
That's a great question. And I'm I am a techie by formation, and I am a data mindset, and maybe I am underestimating this. But from my perspective, data is data. And what I'm trying to say is that, yes, we are producing the global credit score. That global credit score takes in consideration your financial transaction from anywhere in Europe and bubbles it up in a score. And that score, it's whatever, 70 out of 100. And that has exactly the same meaning in every language. Of course, even behind the scene, you of that score, you get all of your bills. Now, does it make a difference between France Telecom and O2? Arguably not. Arguably, the ways that you pay France Telecom and the ways that you pay O2, that should be important, but not the name of the company. So this is why what we do is thing like the global credit score is very much resembling your credit score. And you're not sure if you've seen your credit score, the details and everything there. So it's the words are not very important there, but the data in it.
Right. Okay.
This is why we do this kind of data uniformization across Europe. And when you look to the frequencies that I am paying my bills in whatever country, that should be the same from the company perspective. You know what, if I want to, I don't know, if I want to provide my services, me as a company, if I want to provide my services only to people that are paying their bills, I don't know, is at least 80% of the time, then you got the information there. It's as simple as that. You don't need any translation on anything. What I mentioned about the documents, I mean, getting into more specialized industries like for car insurance, you need the proof of no claim bonus.
Right.
I cannot provide that. Through bank transactions, I have no idea if actually you had an accident or not. But then what you need to do is to get to the Romanian authority. The Romanian authority will provide that document in English. So therefore, you can actually pass it wherever you want. Now, that is an alternative way of doing things. And this is where, to break into the car insurance sector, for example, I would be willing to actually help them with this kind of uniformization. Says, yes, I am getting the no claim bonus document from all over Europe, and I am telling you that this is 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. And arguably, again, data is data, should be the same.
Just keep it based on numbers, right? Remove language out of the equation, essentially.
Indeed.
Yeah. And I suppose it doesn't stop there. You know, that those are 3 areas that you mentioned that you're working on or have been worked on. But like you pointed out at the beginning, there's a lot of areas in people's lives where this score is going to be important. So have you got something of a roadmap as to someone's life, almost, as to where these touch points are, and are you looking to try and solve as many of these as possible over the lifespan of the company, or is it more just you're taking it one step at a time and you're not really thinking about the grander picture right now?
Our 10 years plus vision is indeed to be this kind of credit rating agency, but for the user, in terms of it is with the user explicit consent, as opposed as the other credit rating agencies where you don't really give your consent for them to collect your data. And it works specifically for you as a user because you are trying to get a service, and only at that moment you actually allow us to share your credit score with whatever company you are trying to get your service from. So that kind of grand vision, I'm cautious that is a 100 billion plus type of market, and disrupting that market, it's not exactly an easy thing. This is why we think into pragmatical terms what we can do right now to start helping users, to start learning from helping those users, and of course start putting some money into the bank. And this is why we launched this tenants referencing in Romania, because of course we want you to learn from that, but also because most of European countries, they don't have a credit referencing agency. And I learned that, I mean, I haven't lived in most of European countries, but then I had lots of conversation with people, and yes, fundamentally they don't have a credit referencing agency. which of course this until now at least was for very good reasons. In terms of, in Europe they are a little bit more stringent and conscious with their data and not being shared and not being used against them. But I do believe that in our case, fundamentally, we allow you to use your data for your benefit. Because if it's nothing there, you'll never agree for us to actually look into your financial transactions. Very, very simple. But if it's a value there, and if we can provide the value to you, then why not? Let's use your data to your benefit. So I think that if we do our learnings in Romania in terms of the tenant referencing, there are other markets in Europe that actually we can spread, and that could be quite a lucrative business. Everybody is pointing me to Spain. In Spain, you get international landlords, a lot of international landlords. A lot of landlords are not actually living in Spain. And then you get a lot of international tenants. And most of the tenants are not living in Spain, but they are just visiting Spain for a week, a month, a year, whatever.
Yeah.
So this is this feels the no-brainer in terms of spreading there. We start doing a little bit of market research. Everybody, how every landlord is solving this problem, they are getting a landlord insurance, which is not exactly cheap. Talking about more than £100 a year. And then guess what? The moment where you start have a bad tenant, and then you claim on your insurance, we all know what happens when you claim on your insurance. Your insurance premium, of course, goes through the roof sometimes, and it will start increasing there. So this is why having a service where you veto your tenant before. I mean, right now you have two options: either you don't have any vetoes, you have no idea who's that tenant, or you get the landlord insurance, but then you can actually veto them and say, you know what, I'm taking that risk, or maybe I'm still paying my insurance, but my insurance cost will be quite small. I mean, to put things in perspective, here in the UK, a tenant's referencing service, it's anywhere between 20 to 40 pounds. In Romania, we entered with roughly 22, probably, when you translate like for like pounds. And our costs to provide that service is not through the roof. So that is kind of the things where we are trying to validate our proof point, trying to help the ecosystem there, and also trying to make some money. And we can spread this across Europe as a fundamental service. The moment where we spread this across Europe as a fundamental service, that will allow us to actually get that data and, of course, start building a relation with our users and build on top of it. Now, UK, it's a different country, that's for sure, but also they have different problems in terms of they don't really have the tenants referencing problem, because here the tenant referencing, it works, and it works the way that it works, doesn't matter, but it works. And I haven't found a lot of people telling me that we have a pain point from the landlord perspective or from the property management company perspective. Of course, the tenants, they always have that problem. But in the ecosystem, we need to solve and we need to cater for all players. So yes, we cannot just help the tenants. We need to help the landlords, and we need to help the property management companies. And this is why we haven't found, maybe we haven't reached out to the right companies, but we haven't found companies telling us that, yes, on tenants referencing for internationals, actually, we do have that problem. Maybe you can help us with. So this is why we kind of parked that industry. But then what we've done, again, as I mentioned, we found this the loans industry, and not the loans in general, but very specific loans for bad credits or thin credit files. And especially if their mission is to help those people to get out of loan sharks and everything, then that feels quite a no-brainer from our perspective to be the ideal customer profile, to be the ideal business to work with. And this is why we try to scale that based on our learning there.
That's interesting, because I suppose thinking about it, that makes sense that there's not really so much of an issue for landlords and property individuals in the UK, because there's just an abundance of people wanting to rent, right? So it's just not as big an issue, because if they run a credit check on someone from a different country and it comes back negative, there's a queue of 1,000 people who will pass that credit check, and they'll just say yes and come on in. So as far as they're concerned, they don't care if they don't have that information and it's not accurate, right?
Indeed, that's spot on. And funny enough, my business partner lives in London. I am in Cardiff, and he said, you know what? Whenever I'm renting an apartment, if my landlord would ask me to dance naked in front of their building at 11 p.m. in the night, I would do that. Because if I really, really want that apartment, that's it.
You have to. Otherwise, it's going to go to someone else. Yeah,
exactly.
If you are enjoying this episode, please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments.
And as you mentioned, it's a huge queue there.
Yeah, it's huge. And I remember being shocked when I first went to rent my first place, my first flat. I remember viewing it with my partner at the time. We had a look, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. We were like, yeah, we'll take it. And he was like, okay, well, that's not how it works. There's other people looking at it, and then we'll decide who's going to have it. I'm like, what? So it's like it's an audition, And I was like, this isn't how it works. Surely it's first come, first serve. We're the ones to say we want it. Like, it's oh no, we're going to run everyone's checks, and we want to meet people, see what they're like. There's a questionnaire you have to fill out as well. We had to fill out a questionnaire about our lives and this and that, and how long we've been together, and then the landlords will make a decision based on who they want. And obviously we didn't get it, because we were young, and a young couple. We didn't have much of a credit history, and so then it obviously went to someone else. I mean, I couldn't believe it. It was no one told me that that's what was going to happen. I was always told, yeah, you go out, you find a place, you look at it. If you want it, you say yes, I want it. But that's the UK for you, right? It's just that they being in property is it's a good business. I wish I was in it sometimes, but yeah.
Indeed, and it's exactly like how I felt when I came here, and it's interesting because yes, also native UK people are feeling exactly the same. It's like applying for a job. You need to go there and portray yourself in the best light there, and explain them your 5 years career plan and where do you see yourself,
Exactly, and it's exactly like a job, because a job interview, because you're quite often not even interviewing with the person you're going to be working for. The landlord isn't there. This is through someone else entirely, so it's entirely subjective. So they're not even going to get a full representation of who you are as a person. It is entirely subjective. Anyway, it's very strange. So I can only imagine how much more difficult that would be for someone who isn't a citizen of this country, or the same in any other country for that matter, maybe going through the same thing. Because there are other countries, as you pointed out, in Europe, which have a huge amount of influx of people too, not just the UK. Because south of France or Spain, like you pointed out, there's a lot of these countries, but that's mostly us going there, right? so there you go.
Going there and also owning properties there,
and owning properties,
and then lending that properties to whatever tenants from anywhere in Europe. That actually everybody loves south of France and Spain. That we know it.
yeah. So how long has the business been going for then? Like, how long was it since you came up with the idea and you made a start on things to now?
Right. So first I will come to this. You ask if we studied those kind of the product or where we can help, because yes, as a credit referencing agency, if you want to be in 10 years, we could help a number of industries. And we've mapped out a number of segments of people, like people just came into the UK, people with bad credit files, people with thin credit files. Then you get corporate, and then you get expats. If I came through a corporation, and that was, initially I came from the MBA, and that was a horrendous experience. And after 1.5 years, 1 year the MBA, and then 6 months working for jobs, then through a corporation I relocated here in the UK, and that was a breeze. That was perfect experience. They took care fundamentally for everything.
When you say through a corporation, you mean from a job placement perspective?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So fundamentally, I've got a job with Admiral, the car insurance company,
Mm.
and then they took care of everything. And I say literally everything. They say, "No, I have this apartment. You'll be there for 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, we'll be helping you find your own place to stay, opening up a bank account and everything." That was a breeze. Fundamentally, every single problem that I had completely vanished,
Wow.
except one. I still needed a credit card. Not because I needed the credit, but because I wanted to build a credit score.
Right.
And that was the first time when I understood what a credit score and, okay, why do I need a credit score and so on. And everybody says, you know what, the best way to build credit, of course, there are a number of ways there that you can do, but also get a credit card.
Mm.
And I said, okay, right now I'm working for a big corporation. I have an income, I have everything. Let's go there and apply for it. And I just went on whatever price comparison website I went, and then applied for it. And then, of course, got a huge thing. It says, nope, sorry, we cannot provide you a credit card. I said, okay, come on, guys, I have a decent income. It is not from a very small company. It's quite a big company and everything. So why on earth are you into actually providing me a decent credit card? And the only credit cards that I could get is this kind of credit building credit cards, which comes like 50% APR, which from my perspective, that's you see, in general, in the Western society, everybody complains about the fact that people are in debt. But, and I'm not advocate of whatever fancy theories or conspiracy theories, but you cannot see that actually this is counterintuitive. For me to actually get access to better financial products, I need to be in debt. I need to get, and I don't need to get something that is, for 5% APR. I need to get something 50% APR. And I did, if I, of course, I knew how to use that card and I use it properly and I never had to pay the 50% APR. But not everybody has the financial literacy and all the experience and everything. And I could totally see somebody that actually says, yeah, okay, I have 500 pounds here right now. Okay, let me spend it and I forget about it. And then every month they need to pay whatever, 100 pounds on that, which is 50% APR on this and everything. And this is how you actually get into that if you are not cautious there. So that is another product. I mean, coming to the product roadmap and everything, helping people to get a credit card, to build a credit score. And I know it's a little bit counterintuitive. When you just came here, okay, we can help you import your credit score. That's one. But then when you import your credit score, we need to have a lot of companies using our imported credit score. In the same time, we want to help companies providing you credit cards to say, okay, right now you can actually get a better credit card rather than the 50% plus APR type of card. So that's another thing on our roadmap. Interestingly enough, Nova Credit, it's a company from US, and they started this 2016, helping purely with credit cards and helping purely people coming to the US. And you asked about data portability and everything. The big three credit rating agencies, the Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, all three of them are both in UK and US. So they have the data inside that company somewhere is the data. It's in plain English. Okay. I know British English, okay, American English, it's still English by the end of the day. So you can actually transfer the data as it is. Nope, you cannot. The moment you cross the Atlantic, you lose your credit score. Nobody wants to pay attention. And this is how they started in US to actually solve this. I think that we are complementary because the ways that they are solving it, again, they are solving the same problem, but we are solving in a different way, which makes us complementary. They will not be able to solve it for Europeans, for example, because there are no credit referencing agencies in Europe, and this is why we are there. Sorry, I've digressed on this.
That's fine.
That's something before, and you'll need to remind me exactly what you're asking me. Sorry about
no, that's fine. It was all really interesting, and yeah, it's answering my previous questions. That's good. No, I was asking a moment ago about the timing of all of this, because I'm just curious as to when you sort of initially made a start on everything, and how long that's been.
Okay. So before this, for 5 years, I was working for Confused.com, which back then at least was part of the Admiral Group, and I was leading their labs team. So fundamentally, the team in charge is researching those kind of new products based on new technologies or not. We are always product first rather than technology first. And based on this, trying to see, okay, if we believe that this is a big direction to take, then what are the steps that we want to put in place there? So I always have this kind of appetite for innovation, for finding for problems, to starting the first few steps there to actually validate that problem. But then last year I decided to start a company. Says, you know what, for sure, whenever I will be out of Confused.com, I want to do this, and I want to solve this problem because I've experienced it myself. There are many people out there. It must be done something different, and I think that we can do something different. And through Confused.com, I got quite a lot of experience in insurance, in the financial sector, and open banking also. We played a lot with the open banking. We in the labs we launched an open banking power proposition, so I knew what's that about and pros and cons and limitations. But I started a company in parallel with Confused.com, and I was tinkering with the technology, trying to play around, trying to say, okay, what is our best niche and everything. I always thought that this year, 2023, will be the year where I'll be 100% on it. But I didn't quite knew exactly how, when, and this. And luckily for me, in February, Confused.com went through a company restructuring event.
Right.
Where they offered redundancies through a number of people, like 50 people out of 300. I says, you know what, where do I sign? Thank you. And by then I had been with the company for 8 years, so the redundancy pack was quite okay. And I says, you know what, that's the perfect moment for me. Let me focus on this. Lately, last year, I found my co-founder also. And when I started to be 100% on this, we found also to take it that says, you know what, yes, we want to solve this problem. We want to be part of this this vision. Let's do it. And this is how we started. I am, and maybe I'm very biased on this, but I when think about financing a company, I always love revenue instead of investors' money.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm very glad to hear that. Me too. Yes, me too. I'm always telling people that in my advisory sessions, like, you know, aim to make money as quickly as you can.
Indeed, and I mean, of course, Silicon Valley and the whole investors, business angels, VCs, the whole financing bit, it works. There are hundreds of billions of pounds and dollars being put into it, and it's very established process there. They know how to do it, how to play the game, and on average, it works. You know what's the problem with averages?
There's a lot of situations where it doesn't work.
Exactly. And I'll always remember one of the data scientist guys, a brilliant guy that I worked with. He says, Adrian, let me explain in a very practical and plastic way the difference between averages and actually segments. On average, every human being has roughly one testicle. In reality, very, very few people have actually one testicle.
Yeah.
And that's the difference with on average it works.
That's a great way of putting it.
Again, I will not take credit for it.
Yeah, I'm going to steal that.
I love the explanation. Very simple, very, very clear, and everybody can understand it and relate to it. And yes, this is why that is a machine. The investing bit is a machine that it works on average. An investor will spread their investment across 10, 20 companies trying to solve a problem, and one of the 10 will actually solve the problem, and boom, this is what they do. And that's okay. I never went through that cycle. I don't have experience in that. I have experience in sales. Pretty much all my life I've been through one extent in various roles, customer facing or sales roles. So this is why I said, let us try to generate some revenue first. Of course, if we want to decide to get some funding, will help for sure. Revenue will always help getting funding, but also we might be able to actually bootstrap it this all the way through. And there are companies, and I have quite a number of examples, where they are actually able to bootstrap it all the way to IPO maybe. Now, again, those are rarities, and I know that I'm kind of against the odds here. But I'm willing to give it a try, and this is why our route to market and our company stages have been thinking into, okay, let's launch a B2C product where actually we can actually make some money. And because our behind the scene costs are not through the roof, everybody says that they are lean, but we are as lean as as one can be. Our costs are not through the roof, so therefore we can have quite a decent profitability margin there. So we say, okay, we are willing to bet on this. So yeah, right now the investment, it's kind of lurking there, but we want, at least for the next 12 months, we are well stocked to actually bootstrap it. Hopefully in these 12 months we'll have some meaningful revenue, so either we can bootstrap it further down, either again we can command a better valuation. Not to mention that right now, frankly, raising money in this type of context and environment, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And it's a full-time job, trying to raise money as well, and it's just incredibly distracting. And if that time and effort can be put into getting the product into the hands of customers who can provide feedback, or even better, provide income and revenue, those are far better things to spend time on, in my opinion. So it's great to hear that, because especially if you feel capable. I suppose where it becomes difficult to make that decision is when you don't have the confidence in the ability to sell. And that's where I find the vast majority of founders that I speak to, they tend to think of investment first as the solution, because they just don't feel confident enough in knowing how to sell. And my comeback to that is always, well, then you should learn. Because if you don't know how to sell to customers, you don't know how to sell to investors. So either way, you're fucked. You need to know how to sell. So that's what you should be working on as a matter of priority. But the reason why I was asking about the time frame thing is because of, it sounds like you've achieved quite a lot in a very short period of time. But also more than anything else, it's just really interesting to hear how long that idea had been in your head for. Before it came out. Like, has the idea changed quite significantly? Because I have a feeling, based on some of the stuff you says, it has, from when it's initially popped into your head and then now it's sort of being executed.
So yes, it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
When I first started, I knew that there is a problem there. I knew that right now there can be better ways to solve that problem for immigrants in the UK, because open banking and open data and access to data. I had no idea. I mean, my first assumption was that we can help the car insurance companies, because, of course, I'm coming from car insurance sector. But then I mean, of course, everybody knows this kind of the concept of talking to your customers, talking to your users before building anything there. The ways that I've approached things is build a very simple MVP, sort of something that I can show around, and something that actually it works to the extent that I need to show a concept. It's not something that tomorrow we can put live in production, but to actually empower those kind of conversation. Luckily, again, because my career spans 10 years in tech and 10 years in business, I can combine the two, and I know exactly what to build to serve me in the sales process. I don't need to build there a castle, because usually, I mean, I'm discussing with technical people, and they say, yes, of course, we can build this and that and that and that. And everybody's telling me what we can build, and of course we can build pretty much everything. We are builders as a species, but then nobody is asking, okay, what actually makes sense to be built right now? And this is, I think, that is the huge problem. And I've seen it in a lot of startups, especially if the founder is not very well in both things in terms of tech and business. It's very easy to get a very vocal CTO says, "Oh yes, this solution, this is the dream," and the CEO or the business mind says, "Yes, for sure, that's the 10-year vision. That's amazing," and they are portraying this kind of huge castle. And this is an analogy that I've been using for whatever number of years. It's very or whatever, it's easy to imagine a huge castle with all the features, all the flags, all the windows, exactly where is the front door, how you get through the castle and everything. And that takes a lot of time, and that maybe in 10 years, you will get there in 10 years. And that's the very good for your vision. But then I've seen a lot of startups trying to say, you know what, we don't launch before we don't have that huge castle there. We don't talk to customers before having that huge castle, because you know what, we are embarrassed. Yeah, we might be able to build an apartment building blocks, whatever, something, or even a tent. We might be able to build a tent, but come on, it's a tent here. And if it's a tent, then okay, I don't like to, invite my potential users to a tent because that's my castle, that's my vision. And as founders, we always have that vision. Says, okay, this is in 10 years, this is how we'll work. I mean, my vision very simple. We will be the credit referencing agency of Europe. But come on, that's a 10-year vision for me to actually build that. No matter if I would get even 10 million, which is outrageous. But let's say at this stage of the company, even if I will get 10 million investing, there is no way 10 million to actually run and get that vision. So I need to sell it. But this is where it comes down to, are you solving a real problem? And I always remember a saying from Silicon Valley, and I don't remember exactly who said this, but I know that it is there, is that try to find problems or try to find people where they have a huge problem, such as their hair is on fire. Why? Very simple. Because if their hair is on fire, if you were to hand him a brick, so a brick, they will hit his head to actually try to put up the fire. Doesn't matter. It's a brick there, but it will actually smash their head. So no matter your tent, if your tent actually solves a real problem, they will try to use your tent. They will do the best there, and they will start telling you that your tent is not maybe big enough, or maybe is not tall enough, or whatever. But that is the kind of approach that we want to take, and I think that we've taken in terms of what's the simple things that we can do. Let's launch. Let's put that kind of MVP together, the technology, to prove that it works. Based on the technology, we start having a lot of discussions, and this is why that very early prototype allowed me to have a lot of discussions to the car insurance sector. And unfortunately, my connections are inside big corporations in car insurance. And big corporations says, you know what, it's too small of a segment for us. Yes, we understand, we know it's a big problem, but it's too small of a segment for us to actually start drafting a new journey, start drafting a new data source. When we do our overall analysis into various segments, suddenly we need to split them between, I don't know, traditional risks and non-traditional risks, or whatever you want to put it. And that is their problem. And I would be foolish enough. I mean, I don't think that I'm foolish enough to actually not pay attention to that. That was their feedback. That would have been a very hard sales process there. However, there are specialized car insurance companies. One of them actually specialized for internationals. And we start discussing with this company because they already believe in insuring internationals.
So that's all
they
of their
need more
problem.
data. Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, this is, so again, coming with the initial idea, and then, okay, the insurance market. And then from the insurance market, we said, okay, we need a B2C product. We need something where actually we'll start generating money, because we'll be able to command more profit there. And this is how we say, okay, let's look at the products. Let's map out the customer segments. What are them and what are their needs? Okay, let's try to see if in Romania we can actually launch this service. And we've done it with exactly the same technology. If you want, we shaped it a little bit. The service is there, it's live and can be used, and it is used, so we learn from it. And it's not perfect, don't get me wrong. Sometimes we need to tell the landlord and the tenant, of course, that we need 24 hours to validate their credit score report. And that is, of course, somebody manually double checking that all the numbers and everything is okay, because somehow that got flagged from the technology. And that's it. And we are willing to actually live with this problem. And frankly, from the landlord and the tenant's perspective, if they have a 24-hour delay in that report, not a huge deal. Yes, of course, it's not nice. It's not something that they will be complaining on whatever forums about it. And those are the kind of trade-offs that I know. I mean, as a founder, I know that I'm willing to take, and I know how much it saves from actually designing the perfect solution for catering for all of the situations, rather than introducing a little bit of customer friction there to some extent and in some scenarios, and actually get a little bit of manual work.
And then you can just build those the parts of that platform bit by bit, but with the feedback that it's more of an urgency than not. But you know what's really refreshing about hearing this approach as well is that it's an approach to a problem that is very large. Like you pointed out, $100 billion problem, like in the 10-year plan scale of things. And the vast majority of founders, I think, out there who have these really big disruptive problems get paralyzed by the fact that they are so big. The only way to do it is with funding, right? Because it's too big. Like, there's no way I can go to any of these big companies and be taken seriously without a serious product. There's no way that anyone would buy it unless there's good marketing. We need people, it needs to be a perfect product. It needs to be well established before anyone's going to take me seriously in the boardroom to solve this problem. And like you've rightly pointed out, it's like, well, yeah, but just take a few steps back. Like there's a version of this that can go, into a smaller version of the market first, and actually you'll come out of it much better because of, like you said, let's say someone was to give you 100 million tomorrow, you could definitely build something that you think would work, right, to solve this 10-year vision. But it probably wouldn't, because it's not been built with any feedback from users. It's not been built with any feedback from the companies, and so you'll be guessing. The 100 million will be gone like that, and then you'll probably have to spend another 100 million fixing it, and by which time the damage to your reputation is done, and no one's ever going to want to work with you because you've come in, you've signed huge contracts, you've got lots of money from people. So it's really good to see that even with these big ideas, there is a way to bootstrap it. There is for everything. I'm a strong believer in that. Every idea can be bootstrapped. It just means you need to go, okay, that's my idea. I'm happy with that idea, but now I need new ones to get there, right? That's what it is. And it's a lot of work, I imagine, because if you said, you're speaking to a lot of these companies, you're speaking to individuals on the ground in Romania, it's B2C. So you're having to, I presume, pick up the phone, email people, message people all the time, right? That's what you're doing, right? You're doing sales.
And arguably, and I think that you pointed out that as founders and as most important as the CEO and the person with the vision there, I do believe that the most important part that we need to do is to be out there and sell this.
Yeah, because you need to communicate that vision, right? That's your job, is to say, yes, I know it's a tent now, but can you see what I see when we look at this tent? Because I see a fucking castle. I need you to see the castle. And that's your job, is to get people to see the castle, right?
Indeed. And most important, learn from their feedback.
Yeah.
Because it's invaluable. There is no way. And I get tons of inbound requests of companies helping me with the business development aspect.
Yeah.
And I don't think that the company is at the stage where you have a product that can be indeed scaled through traditional business development type.
Yeah.
We might be able, with the tenants reference, if we get it right in Romania, the scale problem, totally agree. I need some business development efforts there to actually scale, but we are not there yet. After tens of users,
Yeah, because it needs to currently be sold by someone who's willing to take things and then change the pitch, and it must be continuously evolving. A standard business development person can't do that. You need to give them a pitch and then say, right, there's the direction. They're like an arrow, right? They're just going to go in one direction, whereas you're like this, right?
Indeed. I'm lucky enough to be technical also. So the way that I approach things, I am discussing with the prospect leads. I am understanding their problems, and the next call, it's about a demo. Every single time I'm changing the demo, I'm changing the layout, I'm changing the output of that product, because that product needs to speak on their needs. Very simple. If I'm saying, I have this product, which might be a huge product and a very nice product, but if it doesn't solve their very individual problem, then that's it. To put things in perspective, I was discussing with a bank in Romania. And yes, I was selling the grand vision of global credit score and everything. So Adrian, okay, I understand. But until then, we have a bigger problem. We want to provide loans for Romanians living abroad. There are 3.5 million Romanians nowadays living abroad, that most of them are working and most of them are earning money, and we have zero knowledge about their income. And most of them actually are self-employed. So therefore, if I ask them a pay slip, I have two problems. One, yes, they can artificially raise their income for the last 3 months pay them whatever 500K if they want. Second, in most of the countries, you don't get a rubber stamp, you don't get something, you just get a PDF with your payslip. That PDF, you pay somebody £10 on Fiverr and you'll get it done if you are not technical enough to do it yourself. And that's it. So therefore, that bank has a very simple problem, if you want, to validate somebody's income, to say whenever they declare theirs that they have their income, whatever, to have a third-party source to validate that income. And says, okay, that's perfect. Yes, of course, we have the grand vision. If you need only one piece of that huge puzzle, I'm very happy to actually provide you one piece. But because I'm not a traditional business development person, I was able to actually, instead of selling the grand vision of global credit score, then I said, okay, this is what you need. Perfect. This is how our solution actually help you with this. And this helps me stays in the conversation. And probably you know better than me how long it's a sales cycle in a bank. There is no way to get like one and that's it. And I'm opening up the front. And it might be the case that other banks actually, they have other problems, other pieces of this puzzle. But because I have the whole puzzle in my head and on paper, then I know how to sell different pieces there. And weirdly enough and interestingly enough, so the first time when somebody told me about sales, so 2015, I joined Admiral, the car insurance company founded by two brilliant people. One is Henry Engelhardt, the other is David Stevens. Both of them founded the company 20 years ago, 20 something right now. Completely different characters. Henry, very much, if you want, a salesperson, a people person. David, very much a brainiac. David is the one, and he's is a funny story inside the company. Everybody knows that in a presentation. So you've been working for 3 months on a project, and you put whatever 20 slides there, and he sees the 20 slides for the first time, and then you run through the numbers, and eventually says, that number doesn't look right.
Right.
That is his statement. Actually, most of the cases where actually you go there and you drill down and you're right, that number is not right. That kind of thing. But again, long story short, one of my first encounters with and meetings with Henry, because part of when I joined the program, Henry had a program for MBAs to get to know the business and work inside the business and source projects. And he asked openly, like we're like 3-4 MBAs there. Okay, what's the most important skills in life? And of course, everybody. So when I don't even remember what I mentioned there, I said, yeah, of course, those are important, but the most important is sales. And back then I was looking like, sales. No, I'm coming from a technical background, MBA, sales, not exactly the most important, but no. Then says, you know what? you need to be able to sell a dream. You need to be able to sell a product, of course, that's for the first time. But then you need to be able to sell an idea. You need to be able, whenever, even when you get to your team and then it says, guys, I think that we need to do something. If you just go there and say, guys, I need that, I don't know, I think that from tomorrow we need to wrap our chocolate in green paper. If you just say like this, everybody says, oh, you are nuts, go away.
Yeah.
You need to actually, if you think that that's a good idea, you need to be able to sell that idea inside your team. You need to inspire them and actually either learn from their feedback that no, that's not a good idea, or actually be able to get them on board, because they would be the one executing on your vision. If you are not able to to communicate that vision, to sell that dream, yes, you might get like, okay, yeah, let's wrap it in paper, and then behind their back says, oh, we'll show you why that is the worst idea ever. And believe it or not, even that could be a good idea. If the execution is like rubbish, for sure would be the worst idea
because
ever.
if they do something out of spite or contempt, it's going to blow up in your face. Even if it's the best idea ever, if people are doing it because they don't buy into it, then that's a really good piece of advice. I absolutely agree with that advice, because I don't think it's just important for a founder, but it's good for leaders as a whole, or anyone that I would argue anyone with any form of responsibility or anything in life, because actually it's about the communication of ideas. That's what it really comes down to. I've always described sales as there's not really any mystical skill to sales. Yes, you can go and learn sales frameworks, and there's a ton of literature on the psychology of sales and all this sort of stuff. I've read all of those books and I know all about them, but ultimately I just throw them out the window, because what is important is it's about excellent communication skills. That's all it comes down to, the art of communication.
A friendly reminder to share this episode with your network, subscribe for more, and join the conversation in the comments. It really helps us out. Thank you.
That's exactly why I like doing this show, right? Because it's about communication. I have a love for communication with people, and that's what is important, isn't it? It's about being able to communicate something, get the emotion across, right? If you're excited about something, get them excited about something. Like I was speaking to some co-founders recently. They're about to go and pitch at an event to a bunch of investors. Quite high stakes. It's like the biggest one they've done so far. And they asked me to have a quick look at their pitch document, right? I had a quick look at the script. There was no initial start to the story, right? There's no introduction. There was no there was a middle and an end. There was no beginning. And I just asked, I was like, how did the idea for the company start? I was like, oh, it was just from like a text conversation. And I was like, okay, so then that's what you explain at the beginning, but you frame it a bit different. So this company, like 3 years ago, our friends and I were having a conversation about this particular pain point and talking about how for years, people like us have struggled with this thing. And this idea was born. And then you go into the presentation. That's all it takes, but it's a story, right? You need to get people emotionally invested into the story, and that's why I've always said for a number of years, we're storytelling creatures. There's a quote. I think I said this on another episode. I don't know if you're aware. Terry Pratchett, the writer.
No.
Oh, he's a great British writer. You would love him. I hope you love him. What kind of stuff do you like? Do you like science fiction, fantasy?
Science fiction most.
Okay.
Whenever it's not business and everything, the technical things, if you want, then of course science fiction is
good. I love. Yeah, I'm a huge science fiction. That's why I wanted to go for this background.
It's perfect then.
Yeah. Well, it's strange. Terry Pratchett he's dead now, but a very famous British author, and he actually does more fantasy rather than science fiction, but in a way that appeals more science fiction-y than fantasy, if that makes sense. But anyway, he wrote a number of insane books, and he actually wrote a book in partnership. So he was a co-author of a book, which for the life of me, I can't remember the name of the author, but he's a very famous evolutionary biologist, I think, or a mathematician, one of the two. And it's I won't explain the whole thing, but basically in one part of it, he says that Homo sapiens should have been called Pan Naran, which I believe in Latin translates to storytelling ape.
Okay.
Because throughout history, throughout the evolution of mankind, what has differentiated us from any other animal is the passing on of information. And the way we do that is in narrative form, in mythology, in legend, in myth, right? And that's how we pass on information. You give people someone a set of instructions like from IKEA and tell them to memorize it. They're not going to fucking memorize it. But if you tell them a story about how to assemble this piece of furniture and give each piece a character and an arc and all that, they'll remember how to put that piece of furniture together. That's just how we're wired. It's emotional. So yeah, I'm on board with all that. Bit of a rant, but I agree with that.
That's if I may on this, and that's a great point about storytelling. And I'll always remember my grandmother saying lots of stories about. I mean, she lived 8 years ago. That was in her in the years, and back then she had a lot of stories with wolves and people being chased by wolves and this kind of stories that actually as a child, or like a 5 years old child, 7 years old child, that actually sparked a lot of my imagination and actually taught me a lot about life and everything. Because yeah, of course, she was reading me stories from books, and that has and have their own flavor and everything, and then their own prose there. But I'll never forget the stories about real life experience that actually she had. And I do believe that me as a parent, whenever my kids are trying to read us a story, they always, and I started 4 or 5 years ago, I started to share from my experience, and I'm trying to share the stories that I lived when I was relatively their age, because they need to relate on that. And when I ask them the evening, okay, would you like a story from the book or me sharing one of my stories? They always get with one of my stories. And not because I'm good storyteller. I'm the worst storyteller in history on that. But I'm constantly struggle to remember things when I was like 5 years old. Okay, what actually happened that it's worth sharing and everything. But I do see how they both of them relates to that, and both of them tries to say, okay, so in my case, this story actually could happen like this, and this is why I need to react like this and like that. And I do believe that, probably I don't know well enough the UK society, but in the Romanian society, when I was a child, it was very much of a telling you what to do. Do this, do that, and you'll be whatever good in life and eat well, everything. So when the parents were trying to send, if you want to share their experience, was not sharing their experience, was sharing the learnings of that experience. As you know what, I just want you to eat healthy because you would be healthy for until 100 years old. And when I was like 7 years old, I had no idea what means healthy. And I was like, okay, I have this vague principle there, or vague concept. So naturally, and then of course, I mean, that was the society. And then my formation as an engineer, engineers are not very good of storytelling. That's for sure, without much stereotyping. But I think that we are on the same page here. But then I realized how important is actually to have this kind of storytelling in pretty much anything that you do in life. And yeah, as you mentioned, if you can actually embrace it a little bit, and if you can put it a little bit in a story, our brains are wired and hardwired to actually remember those stories. We've been reading for whatever hundreds of years, but we've been sharing stories for, I don't know, tens of thousands of years. It's very simple. There is no way for our brain to be better of reading rather than that. Not to mention all the other like video and this. So yeah, totally agree. And
it's also linked very closely to charisma. So like you tend to see people with higher aptitudes for selling or storytelling or good communication overall. They can command a room, right? So they're more likely to have more meaningful relationships with friends and family, and, you know, more likely to get promoted at work, and, you know, therefore have higher incomes, healthier lifestyles. Like, all these things are linked, you know. Even back to your point about parenting, I noticed with my son, for example, who, you know, he's an 8-year-old boy. There's challenges, right, throughout the ages. And, you know, every now and then there's behaviors that you just can't get them to stop, and they drive you mad, and whatever it is, misbehaving at school or home or whatever. And I found that obviously the default setting is to just get frustrated and to just be like, stop doing that. I've told you 1,000 times, stop doing that. And that's 80% of the time. That's what we do, right? But actually, if you take the time to sit down and just come up with a story, right, that's related to the thing. So if you know, years ago, I knew a boy who used to do this, you know, and you somehow, you tell a story. So this is the story about what happened. You know, he's dead now. No, like, you know, whatever it might be. But, you know, you could tell a story. I mean, that's the reason why we have a lot of these fairy tales, and a lot of the stories are cautionary tales, right? Because they're meant to impart a lesson. The Boy Who Cried Wolf, the, you know, Red Riding Hood, like whatever. These are all stories that are meant to pass on information about behavior, about how to act in society. So they're useful tools for a lot of reasons, definitely. But how did you find that transition, though, having to start learning that? Because presumably, so you were learning sales in Admiral, I suppose. That must have been, like you said, if you hadn't had that mindset, how did you manage to start?
It was not easy, but I think that I've got, and I'll always remember when I graduated the computer science university, our dean, I'll always remember his advices. You know what? Go in a company and try to work with people, try to work with your customers external of the company. Don't just be in a company and solve tasks, for example. In the programming world, in the tech world, everything is very specialized, and it's very easy to get, okay, I'm in a support team, I get some tasks here, and I need to do 3 bucks today, and
get your head down, do the work, go home.
Yeah, and that is the dead end. If you are a 20 years old person, if you get there, that is the worst place to be, because you will be thinking so narrow, and you don't have anything. And I took, for better or worse, I took his advice. And my first company, I worked for 5 years. I was fundamentally doing everything for a customer, from getting to that customer, trying to understand their needs, programming, testing, releasing, deploying, get to the customer to get the feedback. And that was, again, not necessarily by choice, but I always valued that. So that interaction, and of course, at that moment, I was very clunky, probably to an extent. Even right now, I'm clunky in this kind of communications, but still, it helped me. And then I worked for 6 years for a big company in Romania, and we were delivering governmental projects where I needed to get different stakeholders. So suddenly I needed to be in the middle of European Union, and then the Romanian government, and 1 million farmers. Those were my 3 key stakeholders. And then, of course, I needed to make sure that everybody's kind of happy. Nobody was brilliantly happy, but everybody was kind of happy there, and that helped me to have this kind of a broader view there. But then, yes, in Admiral, when I went in Admiral and says, you know what, okay, right now we need the sales, I'll always remember my training. My training was in new business there, so fundamentally on the phone. And now you can imagine I always remember my first phone call there, when the very strong Romanian accent met the very strong Scottish accent. And I had no idea exactly what I said and what I've been told into that call. For whatever reasons, it resulted in a sale.
Wow. Okay.
I had no idea exactly how. And I always remember this kind of, oh, can you repeat that, please? I think that the line is not very good.
Yeah, that's the go-to excuse. Yeah, sorry, it's a bad line.
Yeah, indeed. But that, yes, of course, I needed that. And then was the baptism of fire, because everything that I needed there, so the role in Admiral was more of an internal management consulting. So I was going in a team, learning a little bit what they do, trying to come up with a better way, and then try to sell the dream inside this team. And that was just learning by doing. And it's not the PowerPoint, and it's not only how you put your PowerPoint, because that it's only 5% of it maybe. But it's this kind of communication, this kind of selling your team. And then of course I was rubbish in the beginning, and then I got a little bit better and better. So to the extent that I was able to sell the dream to the CEO from confused.com, to sell the dream to get a new team, to start a new team called the Labs. And she said, you know what? Okay, yeah, I believe in that. Okay, let's do it.
Amazing. That's and it all starts with just talking to people, right? I mean, that's always how it starts. You know, that's why I say one of the best jobs any teenager or young adult can get is in the hospitality industry, I think, because of it forces you to talk with people from all around the world under all different kinds of situations, and that can prepare you for the ability to communicate with pretty much anyone. And then you can go on to do like what you did and specialize in speaking with some particular kinds of people under certain types of conditions and more stressful situations and so on. But you mentioned about the sort of consultancy side of things. I honestly believe that consulting is one of the hardest sells that there is. I think it's incredibly underestimated and underappreciated quite how difficult that is, because you're up against the wall there with that sale, because you know you're trying to sell something to someone that don't want anything from you, basically, right? You know, you've got a team of people who are doing, because I work with big companies all the time where I'm coming in, the senior leaders of the company have recognized that I am needed, but no one else there thinks that I am needed. Right? They're like, the way we do things is fine. We're great at what we do, and they immediately think, well, you're there as a threat to basically say you're not doing your job well enough, and that's why I'm here. It's because their managers telling them, and so immediately what you have to do is set the tone. It's like, guys, I'm not here because your manager thinks you're not doing a good job. I'm here because your manager thinks that there is a way of collectively making your life easier. So let's figure out how to do that, right? You know, and it's a very difficult sell because you get a lot of skepticism, a lot of pushback, and inevitably you can't win everyone over. But you can get most of them over. But then I've seen consultants go in like a bull in the china shop, and they're just like, right, guys, this is what we're doing now. And it's like, oh, dude, what are you doing? Like, it's not going to work. You know, like you need them to execute the fucking thing. Like, so, you know, if you turn around and just say, well, it didn't work because your staff are shit. It's like, well, that's your job. Like, your job is to make them do it, you know. So it's really hard. It's really hard. Did you find you had a lot of that pushback as well?
Yes, of course, and then naturally, and then I mean, I'll always remember one thing we had in a change management class during the MBA. The guy put some statistics out there and say, you know what, so the high level is change is the hardest thing in the world, but then he put in the context where out of 100 people that goes to the doctor, and the doctor is telling them, hey, if you don't change this, you're going to die in the next 1-2 years. How many actually are able to change? Less than 5%.
Fucking hell. Yeah.
Less than 5%. So
people
change.
Are stupid.
I'm not sure. We are hardwired. You mentioned about the hardwired. This is how our brain works. If in the morning I need to go there and make my coffee, it's very hard. If I've been doing that for 30 years, if my doctor is telling me that, you know what, you need to stop that. Yes, my conscious brain says, yes, I need to freaking stop that. But on the other side,
creatures of habit, aren't we?
Exactly. And probably the habit bit, it's something that brought us here. Operations and everything, companies and everything that we do, it's kind of in a habit day by day. If I need to think every day, what am I doing minute by minute? Oh my goodness, I'll be that. I need my routine there. Again, inside those 2 hours, I'm doing whatever, inside 2 hours, whatever. But then the overall, I need the routine. So we are a creature of habit. So therefore, changing that, it's bloody hard. And yes, totally agree with you. When I was first getting into those teams, trying to, I never, probably that helped me a lot in terms of, I don't think that anybody would have seen me at any one moment like, okay, very cocky guys coming here, there. I know everything, and I don't have that attitude by formation or by nature. So that helped me to go in a team and try to learn from them and try to say,
be exploratory, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing like this, I was coming from a technical background, never lived in the UK. So right now I need to go in a teams that most of them were UK natives. Most of them were actually having 5-10 years worth of car insurance experience. How on earth can I go there and say, guys, let me tell you how to do things? No, maybe in my head, I couldn't have justified that in one moment. So this is why probably that helped me, this kind of attitude that you mentioned. Okay, I'm here to try to learn from you. Try to learn what you're doing. This is a rotational process. It's what we do right now. Okay, we try to learn from this. If I can help in any way, by all means, let me help. If not, okay, let's see how it is. And funny enough, sometimes it's not doing anything and not changing anything. Sometimes it's the best way to do things. It's not like you always find, or at least I always found it is like, okay, you need to go there and I need to improve things. But a lot of times improving things, you might improve things by 2%, but the effort that goes in that 2% is completely bananas, and the chances to get disruptive. It is like exactly. And
sometimes just being there and taking the time and spending the time with the team and the people and just saying, right, what is it that you need? How do you do your job and all that? Suddenly results get better just by having that presence. And I've had that before in gigs where I've then, given, sat down with an update with the people who hired me. And it's like, well, productivity's up, results are up, like, you've done a fantastic job. Thank you very much. And I'm thinking, I'm just doing discovery. I haven't fucking done anything. But it's because they don't have that support. They have no one that's ever asked them, how do you do your job? How is your day going? And that was all that was needed. I'm like, okay, fine. Give me my check. I'm going. But yeah, I mean, I think it's also down to the fragility of ego too. Like you mentioned about habit, that I think that's a part of it. But also, like with the doctor, example again, if the doctor says to you, you need to stop drinking coffee, it's killing you, and you need to stop now, otherwise you'll be dead in 2 years. Well, then I think there's parts of us that sort of, it feels a little bit hurt by the fact that we have made a wrong decision for so long. It's kind of like, we think we make good decisions as people, and it's very difficult for us to admit we've done something wrong as people too. That's definitely hardwired in us too. So there's some element of, like, I think having to take ownership of what we've done or our behaviors, that's very difficult for a lot of people to swallow. And I think that plays a huge factor, because if you change that thing, you are admitting to everyone that you have been doing something wrong. Like, I shouldn't have been drinking coffee, but I have for 20 years. You know what I mean? And of course, it gets more complicated with more types of behavior, like obesity, for example, having to admit that eating whatever you want for however many years was a stupid mistake. Well, that means then for the last 20 years, I was stupid. And that's a very difficult thing to reconcile, because that doesn't mean that, but that's how it can feel, right? In a behavior that's been going on for so long. So it's interesting psychologically. Very interesting psychologically.
Can be, and that's a very good thought in terms of, yes, fundamentally acknowledging that my decisions actually brought me into this place, wherever is that place where I need to change. That is very hard to swallow for somebody with a big ego, and in general, as humans. And
anyone, because it takes a considerable amount of self-awareness to come up with that conclusion, to look back at things and say, okay, well, those decisions I've made led me to this point. So it's myself that I have to acknowledge. And it's funny, because of the vast amount of founders that I speak to, especially or those in senior positions of business, tend to have a significantly higher amount of self-awareness than other people, I've found, generally. And I wonder if there's a correlation between that and the ability to lead people. I feel like there must be a good correlation there.
For sure it is, and for sure I've seen it in Admiral in terms of people with 20 years worth of experience in car insurance. We're actually asking people with zero experience in car insurance about things and what can we do better and what do you like here and those kind of things. And they were actually paying attention
Mm.
That was probably one of the things. So those people actually, they are not, if you want, overconfident, and they are not like, yes, I know everything. And it's very easy when you are very well known. I mean, McKinsey is writing reports about Admiral being the leading company in the world in terms of pricing. So it's very easy to say, you know what, I've been the one doing the pricing in Admiral. I know everything. Why on earth do I need to bother to ask somebody about this?
Yeah.
But no, I haven't seen that. And yes, they were actually asking the questions, and they are open-minded and say, okay, trying to understand different views there. And I think that this, you mentioned about this kind of always into the, challenging my beliefs and say maybe there are other ways, and be open-minded. Say, okay, that's not exactly okay. That's my idea, and because it's my idea, it needs to be perfect.
Yeah,
That's fine.
Complacency is the most dangerous thing in life, I think, and in business. And yeah, getting complacent with the fact that you think that you know what there is to know about something is incredibly dangerous. But then equally, it's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because at the same time, you do need to have confidence in your ability and your skill and your experience. So you don't want to always be second-guessing yourself. So it's about finding that balance between being confident in your abilities, understanding that you don't need to listen to every opinion on certain things, because there are some opinions that just aren't as valuable as others, but still listen, to a degree. But then, trying to identify new information is sometimes quite difficult, isn't it? Like, especially if you're not in a situation where you're exposed to it a lot. That's very difficult. But yeah. And what you mentioned as well, another thing that was really interesting that you mentioned was about how if as a 20-something-year-old you go into a job and you're just sort of head down, just getting on with the role, how quickly you can isolate yourself from everything, right? From growth, from opportunity, from so on. That's something I see time and time again, actually. So a lot of the pro bono work I do is for young entrepreneurs, so people who are thinking of business ideas. So they might be in their 20s or something, maybe doing internships or just out of university or whatever. And they are quite often in that situation. They're like, I'm in a dead-end job. I'm sick of it. I want to get. And first of all, I'm like, well, dude, you're only fucking 20. Calm down. But also, like, I'm like, well, what are you doing in your work? Like, do you have friends there? Do you have people you speak to? Do you socialize with them? Do you, are you actually creating your opportunities? Because that's what it comes down to. No one's going to hand you anything. And I think that's what the misconception is for a lot of people these days. Not just young people, but people in general. They think, well, if I work hard, I'll get promoted. No, you won't.
I used to think like this 20 years ago.
Right? That's not how it works, man.
Yeah.
Like, people don't get promoted because they're the hardest working. They get promoted because they're the fucking loudest. Like, that's why they're the loudest about how much work they do. And they might be doing a very small amount of work compared to you, but they talk about the work that they do, and they tell everyone that will listen, and they go to the drinks with the managers, and they like hang out at the smoking area with the senior vice president, and they all that sort of shit. So that's why they get promoted. That's why the saying is, it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? That's what it comes down to. And so that's what I say to them. I'm like, okay, well, next time, if you start working on these relationships, start talking to your co-workers. And beyond that, if you have a great idea, don't just sit on it, present it. Go to them with a new client, even though you've not been asked to. Just do it. So what's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to get fired. All right, so what? There's another job like where you can sit and be miserable, but you've got to create these opportunities, So yeah, it just made me think of all of these people I speak to when you mentioned that.
Indeed, this part of communication, and this is, I mean, Henry always used to say that you can almost never over communicate. And one of his pillars,
you haven't met my son.
Communicate.
He over communicates. That boy never shuts up. There is such thing as over communication.
Okay. That's good. Then you'll need to introduce us then. Try to say it. But yeah, this kind of striking that balance between, yes, of course, you need to be productive in your work, you need to build a relationship, you need to be mindful of who's doing what and what are the most interesting bits, and of course build those relations. And yes, those are counterintuitive. We
Mm.
think that yes, we go in a job and we want to be the best of whatever we are doing there. And this is how we get promoted. And it might be the case that there are some niches. I don't know if you are a brain surgeon, for example. Probably if you actually go there day by day and actually you deliver results in your job, probably you advance in your career as medical professional, not exactly running a hospital. That's a different story, but actually you'd be seeing. But there are very
I would
small.
probably guess not. I would say probably not. I would say even then, it's still about who you know. You still need to go more probably to dinners with other surgeons, and you probably still need, you know what I mean? You probably still need to meet these people who own the private hospitals so you can get offered that job for the private gig that's going to pay twice as much. And you know what I mean? I think it's still just people. It's relationships. It's probably all it is.
That's a
I mean,
good point.
even
Like that, yeah.
even getting the job as a surgeon, like there are people out there who spend 8, 9, 10, whatever years it is studying, and getting a job in a desirable hospital as a doctor or surgeon or whatever it might be is difficult, because that's a gamble, after spending all that money, and then they can go and work in a place that is hardly paying them anything. And again, if you want to get the good jobs, you need to know people. It's like the same as anything. You've just got to talk to people, build relationships.
Indeed, and it's you see, and it's funny that I don't know here in the UK, but in Romania we never had a class or a course or anything in terms of networking and building relations and anything like this. I mean, I remember in the MBA we had one day of networking. They say, no, this is how you do networking, and there was a guy there, an expert in networking, and actually that guy taught us the basics of networking, the fundamentals. What this is when you get in a room. This is how you spot different groups. This is where you go, and so on. All of those kind of things.
Yeah.
But I do believe that this is you don't need to be like a semester, a term class or whatever. It's just get one day where you get everybody there, and you learn the basics of it and go and practice. And then of course a lot of opportunities to talk to people and
exactly
and do it.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's my favorite expression. I think, because you have to be uncomfortable before you can get comfortable in situations. That's just the way it is. But it's just so tempting to not put yourself in uncomfortable situations because they're uncomfortable. Right? No one wants to purposely do that, but it's, I think, an incredibly important way to learn. It's like my son, he learns all different kinds of things, and I say to him again and again when he's getting frustrated or when he's getting annoyed with something, I'm like, good, you're learning. And he's like, yeah, because he gets it now, because I'm like a parrot, so I've repeated it to him many times. I said, if you're uncomfortable, if you're getting frustrated, it means something is going in, because you're figuring it out, and that's frustrating sometimes. But look, I just realized the time. I can't believe it's like I told you, man, like when we first spoke, it just goes so quickly. We could probably keep going, but yeah, as we're coming to the end, there is something I like to do really quickly. And look, we've already talked about lots of things that are probably going to be useful for people listening, but I like to end it with just maybe 2 or 3 tips, or one even tip that you might have that you want to give to the people listening, who are mostly entrepreneurs and founders, to be honest, who are listening, that maybe, things that you've learned. What words of wisdom would you offer to those listening?
So if we are talking about purely entrepreneurs that actually they are doing their there, probably one of my biggest realization and my this kind of amazing skills, it is this kind of transposing a huge vision, which is that castle that I was mentioning about, but in the same time trying to design the tent, the first things that you need to put out there to validate your castle. I cannot stress that enough, and I'm sure, I mean, it's not me saying this, there are many authors and many very well regarded people saying this. But I think that we tend to fall in love with our idea, with our solution, with that huge castle with all of their design there. That's a solution for a problem. I don't know what's the problem, but that's the solution for the problem. and we tend to fall in love with the solution because it's in our head, it's in our baby, and we design it, and we want to do it as perfect as we can. I always says, fall in love with the problem, and not me. That is from many years of experience also. Fall in love with the problem. Yeah, be very clear on the problems that you solve, but be very flexible on the ways that you solve that problem. And it might be the case that you actually end up having that huge castle that you have it in your mind. Start somewhere. Start something that you can do today. And in anything, I think that in anything in this world, even in those kind of rocket science type of life sciences and everything, it can be and it should be something that you can do today to validate that huge problem and get more insights about that huge problem, and try to design your tent in a way that again they can use it to an extent. And even if it's just a fake use, if it's something there that actually for regulation you cannot put live, make it like a tent again, like a virtual tent. Make something that they can use in a close simulation as live example, and then you learn from them using that tent. That I think that it's my number one thing, and my number whenever I am talking to myself first, and then also to other founders, is are you very clear? Okay, the problem and the huge castle, but are you very clear on the first steps that you can actually take right now to validate that? And again, a lot of founders are finding themselves struggling to actually put up that first step to say, oh, but can I actually do this? Oh, I need funding. I need 500K in funding to actually build an app. So why do you need an app? Let's try to get 3 steps before that app that you want to build. To put up a website, it's a 50 pounds, 100 pounds type of effort. Put it there, put something, validate your solution first. So yeah, that is my one word of
no, it's great advice, and you echo exactly what I say to people all the time, and what I do with a lot of people I speak to. I try and help them find those first steps, because I think you're right, it's very difficult, and it can be very paralyzing if you're in love with your idea. In some ways, you want to be validating the problem, not the solution, right? But if you're trying to validate your solution, well, then you're always going to get it validated, because you're going to bias every bit of data you get, right? But to validate the solution, you won't bias it. The problem, then you won't bias it. Very good advice. Well, look, man, we've got to end it there, but like I said, we could keep going, so we'll definitely have to do this again in future. And I'd love to hear what else you've managed to accomplish with the business and the new parts of that puzzle you started putting together. But it's really exciting. I'm really excited for you. So I really hope it continues to go well and things continue to grow.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for this. Thanks a lot for the invitation. And frankly, you're doing a very good job here with inviting founders and allowing us to share our experience and learn from each other. Because it's goes back to the storytelling. No, always learn more from somebody else's stories, and trying to see what resonates with your notes. So again, thanks a lot for putting up the effort, and it's not easy to actually run a show like this. So
I find it easy because of guests like you. Make it easy, right? Because I've been very fortunate with you and all my other guests that are just lovely people and interesting people. So I find it easy. It's not work. It's definitely a hobby. I enjoy doing it.
Way too kind.
It's true. So thank you so much. I appreciate the kind words, and I'm glad to hear that. So that's the goal. So I'll continue to do it and share your story and everyone else's, because I think that's how we best learn, right? So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your week, and keep in touch. We'll speak soon.
Thank you. You too.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you for watching and/or listening. Please like, subscribe and join the conversation in the comments below.